Okay, continuing with the hand control for the 161 class, um, we are going to make this a little bit more complex. So the IK handle here that we created for the simple arm, we're actually going to delete that. And then we're going to insert a new joint between the elbow and the wrist joint, which will allow for a more realistic rotation for the wrist. Then we're going to be doing a bunch of uh, new attributes over here for the hand control for fingers. We're going to be duplicating some joints for the fingers. We'll be adding a thumb joint hierarchy. So there's a lot to do here. So let's get to it. Mostly a lot of naming and duplicating and expressions, but still we need to just do a couple more things to this arm before we move into the hand. So first off, deleting the IK handle that we made for the simple arm. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually insert a joint here from the elbow, between the elbow and the wrist. And if we go to skeleton insert joints, you can see if it just sort of click on the elbow and I drag down, you can see it actually inserts a new joint. I can kind of just drag back and forth. You can see it can't go in any direction but along the length of that original joint. So it's a lot easier to actually make this hierarchy first and then add this lower arm joint in afterwards. So don't need the tool anymore, so I'll just get out of the tool. I find it kind of a little distracting, that tool. So you can just go into your arrow tool or Q to select. Open up the hierarchy here and you can see that the new joint is right here between the elbow and the wrist joint, and name that lower arm JNT. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to connect our IK handle from the shoulder joint to the lower arm joint. So it's just going to span from the shoulder to the lower arm. So I'm going to grab my IK handle, go to options, going to make sure we're using a rotate plane solver. Close that up. Going to click on the shoulder joint, and then I'm going to click on the lower arm joint, and I get the new IK handle. Just call that arm IK. So that works well. We want to take note of the white triangle, and there were some people in the class that had it going different directions, and we were going to see what the limitations were there, but we could handle it with the pull vector or some other aspects. We'll have to see. So next step, we need to actually we can work with the object this way, but it seems a little awkward when you do it this way. So what we want to do is move this pivot point down to the wrist, and it'll feel more like it like the original version, but we'll have this extra joint on the inside. So the way we do that is we actually select the effector of the IK itself. So you'll see it sitting here. And what we're going to actually use is press home or insert on your keyboard. Just pressing that once. Brings up the pivot point. And I'm basically just going to snap that right to the wrist joint. Okay, let's get really, oops. That's my command key, so option. Just get in there and really rotate your view and make sure getting that where you want it. Once you feel good, let's press home again. Just takes me out of that. And normally we don't really click on an effector, but now you can see that the IK handle is now, it looks just like it did before, but it's actually going to move from here, so I'll get a proper bend on the elbow, but it'll feel normal to an animator. So it's a little trick to get that out that way and still get effect from this. Okay, so we did break the relationship between the curve and the IK handle, this new IK handle, so we do need to redo the point constraint. Sorry, I'm holding the command key again. So point constraint is first we select the arm, or the hand control, excuse me. Then I'm going to shift select the arm IK and go to constrain. Again, I keep coming to this just to make sure people are seeing the maintain offset, but you know, once you've actually checked it once at home, you just don't have to really keep checking it. But at school, you're always going to have to come back and take a look. Just going to say add. And so now when I move this around, I get the same sort of response that I was getting before, but I've got the extra joint in there. Okay, so we're back basically to where we started with the process. So now what we need to really kind of do is get rid of the finger roll. We're going to put a new one in there, but I want to add the little designator between the finger roll and the other attributes. So there's going to be a lot of them, so it's just going to add a little bit of time on the video, but I'm just going to try and roll through it as quick as I can. So first off, I'm actually going to delete the finger roll because as far as I know, you can't really organize attributes. It's maybe different now in 2016, but I haven't seen a way yet. I haven't really investigated that actually. But one of the things you can notice is if I actually click on an attribute, if you go to edit, there's an delete attributes, and you can do more than one at a time. I'm just going to do one. And then I'm just going to add the new attributes. So I have hand control selected, I'm going to edit, add attribute, and so we're going to be doing a fair few here, so it's going to take a little time. So first off, I'm just going to give a nice name that distinguishes the different control surfaces that we're creating. So for instance, here I'm going to do the finger controls, and these I'm going to do them uppercase when I do these. Override nice names, so it actually looks like this. This thing seems to prefer, I think, the underscores there, and then we'll say displayable. Again, some of my habits here are from 2014. It seems like 2016 is a little different how this handles this. But again, all of these, again, the only thing I'm really doing are adding names. And this one's displayable because we want to create a displayable one. It's really the only difference here is just, am I doing displayable ones or am I doing keyable ones? I'm going to say add, and again, you just get the name to designate that you're going to do something else. And now I'm going to actually add in all of my different attributes. So first one's going to be finger. Oops, got my caps on. Let's get my caps off. I don't like to cap my attributes because I'm going to be doing expressions with them, be referring to them. So keep that off. So again, when we're doing just our regular attributes, it's really all I'm going to be doing is just putting a name in. That's it. Everything else keyable. Everything else is default settings. Let's say add. And I'm just going to roll through a bunch of names here. So the next one's actually point. Yeah, point. I think, I'm not sure if I said pointer or point, but I think I named the call point here because I haven't named it yet. So I think in class I might have called this pointer, but anyway. So we'll call it point. And then this one is a multiplier. So I kind of paused there, but I'm trying to remember what I do in class. I was trying to match that a little bit. But anyway, I'm going to actually copy this because I'm going to retype that a whole bunch of times. So I'm just going to copy multiplier like that. I'm going to say add. So now I've got point multiplier. And basically, I'll make one for each of the fingers that we're going to have. So we're going to have a middle. Just paste multiplier. Add that. Do ring. Multiplier. I'm going to do pinky. Multiplier. And I can see how maybe that's not totally obvious because we haven't really made the joints yet to go with that, but we're going to make individual sets of fingers for each one of these multipliers in a moment. So that's all of the fingers now, and I have a roll in those, but I also want to be able to spread the fingers out, so I'm going to add another one that we're going to call finger underscore spread. Okay, so we'll add that one. So that's the finger controls. Now we're actually going to move into thumb controls, so I'm going to do another header here. So just going to do underscores. Usually I do 4, but it looks like I did. I don't know what I did on that one. And then caps lock. And it just, I think that when I'm working with the attributes in the channel box for animation, just making this stuff look, I don't know, like trying to organize it over here is helpful. It's I think it's a little hard to work with. So I'm going to say finger controls, thumb controls. There's thumb controls probably not because I don't need plural thumbs there. Okay, and again, this one's a displayable, so I'm just making a displayable thing. It's going to say thumb control, say add. So now I've got to, oops, down wrong. Let's undo that. Let's do that one more time. I didn't do the override long name or whatever. Nice name. So this was thumb. Oops, control. And I didn't do this override nice name right here, and then displayable. So yeah, and that gives it the, you know, just these little lines. It's basically all that did is just allow me to put those underscores there. And then you can see that when I push that, it goes back into keyable and it's regular things. So now we're going to do a thumb roll. Oh, that's all caps again. Sorry about that. Thumb roll. Going to add that one. Now we're going to do thumb in, out, and then we're going to do thumb up, down. Look at my notes, I did that totally backwards. I'm not sure if what order we actually did those in class, but that I don't think the order really is going to make that much difference. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept that or add it and close it. And so now I basically have some finger rolls, there's some point multipliers, I have some finger spreads, thumbs, and roll that. So I'm basically set up with all my control points. And so now we can actually work on the joints themselves. So I'm going to come up here to the top view. Just going to maximize that view. Get pretty close here. And what I like to do is actually unparent this particular object so that, or this hierarchy, so that I can work with them individually and then kind of reparent everything afterwards. So I'm basically going to unparent the finger joint. And you can see that I still have some expressions running along these joints. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift select these 3, go to the rotate value and right click and go to break connections and just get rid of those expressions that are on there. You can do that individually or you can do that all at once, however you want to do that. You could also do it actually in the expression editor, but I find it a little easier to do it that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually take my move tool and I'm going to move this over and I'm going to call this is going to end up being the pointer finger. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just regular old duplicates. Just move over. This is going to be my middle finger, or Command D is also duplicate, so I can just do Command D and Command D. we'll just move these over. Sets me up with 4 separate fingers. Now, before I get any further, I want to designate these specifically, so you'll notice that they all kind of have the same names, especially underneath. The top joint has of the root has a number designator to distinguish it from the first set, but in the insides you can see actually are the same name. So what I want to do is go into modify prefix hierarchy names. And I think when you think of it, when you make things like this and you start simple names, you can see how it actually is much faster to do it this way. Like keep a simple name with 1 finger and then just do a prefix hierarchy name. And for this one, I'll just call it point underscore, because this is the first set. Say okay. So now everything in this hierarchy is point now. Okay. And then I can just move to the next finger set here, which would be the middle. Just modify prefix hierarchy name, call it middle underscore, say okay. And so now all those have middle. I can select it here or here. This one's the ring underscore. And then the last one, pinky. Say okay. Now they all have are different. So when we're calling to them with the expressions, they'll all be able to run individually as opposed to all together, which will make that work better. Now, since we have the special names, I can come back through and I can just click into these joints and take these numbers out. You don't have to actually remove the numbers, but for some reason it always just bugs me seeing those numbers. And it just looks more like it was actually created specifically for what you're doing. And again, you can see how everything just takes on the original hierarchy, but is specific to whether it's a pointer or pinky. So let's now go into getting into these to fit into the fingers. And again, I'm using kind of the mitten hand from the 160 class, but hopefully you can imagine where the fingers would be. And I would be actually aligning these to match the finger positions and the knuckle positions. So, I'd want all of these balls to basically land on all the knuckles, and I'm going to approximate that here. So what I want to do is, to begin with, would be just to kind of align, for me, we'll be kind of aligning the heights here a little bit. And again, not really actually having fingers to follow makes this a little more challenging, but so I'm kind of guessing these positions, but I'm going to do my best here to approximate what it might look like. So usually this finger's a little bit shorter than the middle one, and what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to have these joints be roughly about the same length as how I'm going to handle this. Typically, this would be your longest finger here. And then, okay, your smallest finger. So I'm not going to get too into moving these with you, but you can see that basically by moving the roots and then scaling the individual joints is how I'm doing this. I'm not moving them, I'm scaling them. And, there's a lot of conversations about how you should not move, and I talk about that in the class. That there are some really wrong things to do with rigging, and in this class you need to realize that we do things that work, but maybe not totally necessarily always the best scenario, but you'll see that everything will work fine here. Anyway, I'm going to just come out of this into perspective, and you can see set up nice. Okay. So now the thumb set, I could build off of one of these fingers or something, but I find it a little easier just to actually build the a new set of joints just right here. So I'm going to do that from the top view again. So I'm going to go back into my top view. I'm going to create some joints. So the thumb, if you notice, the thumb actually starts right almost at pretty much at the wrist. It's like right at the edge of the wrist. So they're almost identically placed. So I'm basically going to click kind of far away and then drag in. And it's really right onto the wrist almost. So I'm going to start right about here. About here. The next joint really is the beginning of the thumb roll. Then we have kind of a knuckle. And then the last one, usually I do that same shift thing where I want it to kind of come out straight, just come right to the end there. Then we'll hit return. It's basically a 4 joint set. Let's go back into our joint hierarchy and open that up, take a look at it. So again, the size of the fingers, the joints, they're huge. Like we said in class, you could have set those up to be smaller. Sometimes laying them out smaller is a little easier to see. And you realize once you make it smaller that maybe you want to change that. So again, if you do one, you'll only just size this one. So just notice that if I try and set, it just only does that one. But if you select all of them, so I'm shift selecting all of them and then doing a 0.2, puts them all into a size that's more manageable. And it's close enough. I'm not going to belabor the issue. I don't actually have a really proper thumb anyway. But roughly about the same distance, and that's kind of, maybe could be a little longer here, maybe, but I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to call this thumb. I think I may have class called this the thumb base, but I think the thumb might work as well, just thumb JNT or whatever, but I think I called it base in the other one, but the other ones I just call fingers, so I'm just going to call it thumb joint. This one is the thumb knuckle. This one's thumb knuckle 2 JNT. And this one is just thumb and JNT. Okay. Okay. Because this is a new set of joints, it's actually sitting down on the origin on the y-axis. So I'm going to just press spacebar. In perspective, you can see it sitting on the floor. This one is pretty easy to snap. So remember, when we're snapping, if I have my move tool and I click on the Y, you can see I can only move this object in Y. I can't move any other direction. So if I select that part of the handle and hold V and then snap to the wrist joint, didn't hit the joint, so there we go. You can see it's perfectly lined up with the wrist. Real simple, easy way to get that up there. Okay, so now we can start taking advantage of all of the joints we just created and the control surfaces that we've created. So first is, if I do a lot of copy and paste because I don't want to misspell things and have problems with my expressions with my spelling. So I do a lot of copy and paste. To those of you that can type really well, you could start to just type these in. Also, just notice that I'm kind of going to go through and do a whole bunch of expressions on everything. And then I'm going to come back and add another portion to each one of the expressions. And that could be actually kind of maybe potentially a slower process to go through that way. But I think in a class setting, it kind of makes sense. So we're kind of doing one set of operations and then doing a new set of operations. So it's kind of a more methodical approach. But if you knew what you were doing right off the bat, you really could just really set the whole expression up properly the way you want it right from the start. Um, so just notice that you know, don't just be so process oriented that you just do it this way only because this is the way to do it. You know, do it for the way that makes the most efficient and you know, makes most sense to you, right? So anyway, that being said, let's go ahead and do it. So the first thing is we'll set up the finger roll. So I have my hand set, selected, get my finger roll. I'm going to go to edit expressions. And I'm just really here to copy this name. So it's the hand underscore control dot finger roll. So that's going to be what's driving everything. And really that's going to be on, it's going to be the same thing. The finger roll is going to drive everything essentially. So this is just going to be pasted onto everything. We kind of want to set it up so that each joint will rotate a little bit more than the last one. So we're going to do that with multipliers on each joint. So this one's going to multiply by 3. So and then this one will rotate by 5, and then this one will rotate by 8 and or times 8. And so the end will rotate more than the beginning, and so you get kind of an offsetting, but it's not controllable. It's kind of set into the process. So you know, it's not going to be super, it's automated, but that you lose some control in that regard. So just those multipliers that we're creating here, you might lose those track of those a little bit through the process. But remember, if that's really determining the rotation in the end. So you want to kind of look at that number if you ever really wanted to have different controls. Okay, that's a long explanation. Remember, if you're not sure the direction to rotate, just make sure you grab your rotate tool and look at the direction. I actually have the Z handle selected, so it looks yellow at the moment, but it is the blue handle. You can see it here. And that's the direction we're rotating, so rotate Z. So I'm going to go finger joint rotate Z, so click on rotate Z. I'm going to select out the name, and again, middle mouse, dragging it down, click into the window, you can say equals, and paste. So the fingers rotate Z is going to equal the hand controls finger roll, and then we're going to multiply it by 3. Put a semicolon there. And that's exactly what we did with the original finger, right? We actually just took these off. Probably even could have left them on and still used them, but yeah, it probably wouldn't work for all the other ones. I was just thinking, wow, can you do that on all of them and duplicate it? I'm mumbling to myself. Anyway, so you know, this is the exact same thing. So you essentially did this once, but we're going to end up doing it on all of the fingers. So I'm just going to say create. I'm going to get the next knuckle. Let's rotate Z. So as you can see, this is going to take kind of a while. And then this one was times 5, semicolon. I don't want to keep typing all that, so I'm going to do a copy there. And this is last time I forgot to hit create when I did that. Make sure I do the create. Then I'm just going to grab the last knuckle 2, rotate Z, little mouse, drag it down. This one's actually going to be 8, and create. So I have to do this now for all the joints. Once I'm done, I'm actually going to have to come back through and I'm going to add another multiplier inside of here. You know, and again, like I said, this would be something that you actually could do right now if you really knew what you're doing. But again, I kind of, for the class, I'm going to do it in steps. So now I'm just going to work my way down all the fingers. Okay, so it's just the next set. So this is going to be all middles now. So it's always going to be rotate Z's. That's not going to change. So I'm just going to put that down there, paste. First one is 3. Rotate Z. This one's actually rotate 5, so that one I don't have to change the multiplier. Rotate Z. This one's 8. And create. So now we're on to ring finger. Z. This one's 3. Because again, I'm just pasting the same value over and over again. So that finger roll's driving everything, right? Oh, this one is 5. I don't need to do that one. Oh, well. So now we're on to pinky. This one's 8. And create. So if I click on each one of these, I should see purple in the rotate Z's. Just to make sure they set all my expressions, because last time I made that mistake of not hitting create right off the bat. So let's just close the expression editor now, and I can take a look now. So now my finger roll, if I take my finger roll, all the fingers should do rotations. So again, the way I'm using that finger roll is I'm just clicking on the word finger roll, and I'm just middle mouse dragging in the space here and just rotating. And so that's what we're after, but now we want to control it so that we can have individuals. We can have some rotating more or less, okay, or some none at all. So we want to have individual controls over each set. So now we're going to take advantage of the multipliers, and that's where these come in. So I had closed the expression editor, which I think is a good idea, you know, in some ways, because it's easy then to select the point multiplier, and we'll go up and get the name. So again, I'm select my hand control, select pull up point multiplier. And again, I'm just starting from the top. The order is not really important, but edit expressions comes in with the multiplier selected. So I'm just going to actually select hand control point multiplier. I'm going to copy that. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the point knuckle. Okay. So all of my point multipliers are going to be specifically referring to just only those point knuckles. The middle multiplier will only refer to the middle. The ring will only refer to the ring joints, and the pinky multiplier will only refer to the pinky joints. And so that's how we're basically controlling these individually. Okay, so again, I've got my point finger, the joint. I put that on the rotate Z. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, the rotate Z is going to be equal to the hand controls finger roll. We're going to add times the hand controls point multiplier times 3. And so we still get that times 3. And remember, I made that point of like that times 3, the times 5, the times 8, those are all going to be there in the end. And those are still what creates that offsetting. So if that offsetting, if you want to change that offsetting at a harder level, you would change those numbers, like say 1, 3, and 6 instead of 3, 5, and 8, or maybe you do 10, 20, 40. I don't know. Depending on what you were actually doing, you could end up with different multipliers there. You could also actually create a variable here as well, or even just, well, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but I'm going to leave you with that. Going to duplicate this so I don't have to keep typing that every time, right? So I'm just going to copy that. Not duplicate, but copy that just so I don't have to keep typing that every time. So now I'll say edit. And now I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just select this one. So now on the nickel, it's on the rotate Z. That's where I originally put it. So I'm actually just going to replace this with what I just copied. So I'm going to paste that in there. But I want to put this back to its 5. So again, we're keeping the 5s, the 3, the 8, like keeping all those. Say edit. And I'll select the last knuckle or the knuckle 2 joint, rotate Z. And I'll paste in, take out that 3 and put an 8, semicolon, edit. Okay. And so now if I just move this out of the way, I'll select the hand control, and now when I do my finger roll, you'll see everything rotates, but the point multiplier just stays straight. And it stays straight because it's multiplying by 0, which is giving it 0 rotation. Now, as I add multiplier in, you'll see it starts adding into the finger roll, or multiplying into the finger roll, and I actually have individual control over that one finger by just controlling the point multiplier rather than a finger roll. So that gives me individual control over that, but I can also still control it all with the finger roll. So we get, you get a lot of control over it. Not every control that you would ever want in the world, but a lot. And I think a little cleaner to look at and just a little easier to work with. So I basically need to work my way back through here. So essentially, I can, with the expression editor, again, just notice up in here in the attributes, I can actually scroll through and find the different attributes we've added, so I can actually go to the next multiplier to select the name and copy. So I have to do this for each one of the ring and the pinky as well. And then I'm just going to move over. So this is the middle multiplier, so now I'm going to do the multiplying for the middle joints. So again, this is a little tedious to watch on a video, I think, but I'm just going to kind of work my way through as fast as I can. So again, I'm just adding in the multiplications line. Multiply by the middle multiplier times 3. And this one is the base joint, so it's always going to be 3. Let's go ahead and just copy that. So let's keep typing that. So I'll say edit. Get the next joint, go to the rotate Z. Oops. Paste that in. Take the 3 out, put a 5 back in. Edit. We'll go to knuckle 2. Rotate Z. The 3, put an 8 back in, semicolon. And edit. Click back on the hand control, scroll across the attributes, ring multiplier, select and copy, and select the ring finger joint, go to rotate Z, paste it in, select the whole thing. There's a lot of ways you can do this, copy and paste, of course, but that's the way I'm doing it. So you edit that, go to the knuckle, rotate Z, the 5 back in, and the knuckle 2. And now we'll do the pinky. So in the hand control, selecting the attribute, copying it, then going back to the pinky joint. Oops, don't have the rotate. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so now if I do my finger roll, you can see actually nothing actually happens, right? So there's two ways to work with this. You can actually set your finger roll to a number, like say, let's just put it at 4. So now my finger roll is at a number, and then I can go to my individual fingers and bring them in any way that I feel like I want to. So then I can do things like this. Have individual control over them. I can go back to my pointer finger and pull out the finger, straighten it out and say pointing like that. So it has those abilities. I can also then go to just the finger roll and do them all together. You can see I can flatten them out, roll them in, and I get a nice kind of a difference between each one. So there's a real flexibility to how these things will work. So you can either work with them individually, all of them together. There's a lot of real options here. One of the ways that like a good way to start was just I would give this one a 2, 3. Something like this, and then your finger roll. You get kind of a nice little. It's just a little default thing, you know. Just kind of curls the finger, you know, the pinky's up a little more, and you know, just to set it up so you get a quick roll on the fingers, and you know, for blocking, looks whatever. Just doesn't look so straight or whatever. But obviously, you can put that in any way you want. So I like to try and leave all my numbers at zeros, as I say. So just zero everything back out. That sets up the fingers. So now we just need to do well, the thumb, but I'm forgetting the finger spread. So let's do the finger spread. So finger spread selected. I've got my hand control finger spread. Let's go into edit, expressions. So I'm going to select this now. I'm going to copy it. And now what we want to do is we're actually going to drive the Y rotation, the green, so it's going to spread out, right? So we want to come out this way. So I'm going to do finger joint rotate Y. I drag this down. Click to enter. I'm going to say equals hand control finger spread, and I'm going to give this times 3 semicolon. And that worked out pretty well. And you know, I'm just going to copy this. It seemed, but again, these multipliers, these are numbers to play around with each character. And is that proper for what you're after? But these numbers are working well for this character. Again, I'm doing that copying and kind of forgetting to hit that create. So I'll just make sure I do that create. Again, I know if I've created, I should see the purple, right? So again, the finger spread's actually going to be the same on all of them. So I don't really need to do much else. I'm going to select this next one. So this is the middle, and this is the rotate Y. Drag that down. Paste that. Now this one actually, you know, doesn't actually really want to rotate that much. So, you know, I do want to put a multiplier on it. but I don't want to multiply it the exact same amount as the other one. So I want like the outside ones to rotate more than the inside ones. So what I ended up doing was doing a 1.3, so you get slight rotation, semicolon. Create that. Then we'll do the ring finger, rotate Y. And just like with the middle one, we don't really want 3 here. We'll do a 1.3, but we also actually don't want to rotate it the same way, actually. So when you think of it, the one set of fingers is going to rotate one direction in Y, and then the other one's going to want to go the other direction. So we're going to want like a negative direction, okay? So I'm actually going to put a negative here, but I'll leave it actually positive just so you can see what I'm talking about. We'll do the 1.3. Semicolon, create, and then we'll do the last one, rotate Y, pinky finger. Okay, so I'll say create, and you'll see that when I click on the finger spread, you can see that they both see that that's not spreading, right? So I need these two to go set to go that way and these two to go this way. So that's kind of what I was getting at with that negative. So if I go back onto this finger here, go to its rotate Y. So what I want to do is just actually put a negative in front of that, which will reverse the rotation. Say edit. Click back on that hand control and then look at my finger spread, and you can see now I can come in or out and close the expression editor. It's nice. I'm just going to throw a number real quick on all those and then get my finger roll on the multipliers, and you can see that with spread that the finger rolls are working just fine. Still have my individual relationships, so I can still, and I still have finger spread, so I can go wide and I can come narrow. I mean, again, it's not super flexible in its automatedness, but it's still pretty flexible. Get a lot of different motions out of it for some pretty simple control surfaces. Okay, so lastly, we can finish up the thumb here. We've got just a little bit more on the rotation too. So basically, we're going to take our hand control. I guess we'll start with our thumb roll here. Edit expressions. We got our hand control thumb roll. I'm going to select it and copy it. So this actually isn't part of the thumb roll. This is going to be the up down and the in out joint. This is actually going to be the roll, these two. Let's take a look at our rotational values. So again, the roll is actually going to be on the Y value for this part of the finger. So it's a different roll value. So again, just notice that I take advantage of the rotational tool to help me there. It's not always obvious, okay? So again, the Y value is the direction we're rotating here. So it's going to be the thumb knuckle joint rotate Y. Middle mouse drag down is equal to the hand control thumb roll, and we'll just kind of do the same thing we've been doing. So it's just going to be a times 3 semicolon. Just copy that. And create. Select the knuckle 2. Rotate Y. Middle mouse. And we'll just do this 5 here. Say create. So now we got a good thumb roll. Now we really just want to set up the in and the out of the hand control. So again, I can select the hand control and just scroll in and around here. So you want the in and the out. So again, that's going to be rotate Y, I would assume. So we'll start with in, out. Sorry, I'm clicking on run there. Click on the word in, out. Copy it. And then we'll select the thumb joint. And taking a look at the rotate tool. So again, this is the in and the out, so that's going to be rotate Y. Is I like the spaces there. Equals. And again, just a one value, just having it just do one-to-one relationship usually feels a little bit slow. So at least 3 seems to be kind of like the smallest number that I'd want to rotate by. So I'm just going to do these, both of the in and the out, by multiply by 3. So that's really simple. I wanted to say create. And it's actually going to be the same joint, but I just want to get the other attribute from the hand control. So I'm going to select the hand control, do the up and the down this time. So just copy it. And again, all this copy and paste, if you're like actually a good typer, you would never really have to deal with this, but I have to. So now the last one was rotate Y, but we want to do now up, down. So that one's actually going to be, looks like the Z value is this way. Okay, so we'll do rotate Z. And it's colored yellow here, so if I click there, you can see that's the direction. So thumb joint rotate Z is equal to hand control thumb up, down, and we'll do just the same multiplier by 3. It's like kind of a default. Again, those are numbers you can change. So you create. And so now I should be able to select my hand control. If I do a thumb roll, I can bring my thumb in or out. I kind of want. That's good. And then if I want to bring my thumb in, got this one. And I've got up and down. So I can actually rotate down. Do the thumb roll. I can bring my thumb in. It's a lot of pieces to control, I think, for a thumb. And like I said in class, I'm not a huge fan of having a ton of things in the attribute editor when you're animating, but at the same time, I really like that it's there's less out on the character itself, and so that's kind of one of the things about this setup I really like a lot. So now the next step was parenting all of the fingers and the thumb to the wrist joint, and then we just want to do a quick connection from the wrist to the lower arm control. So when we rotate the wrist, the arm, lower arm will rotate with it. We didn't really make the clavicle joint, but maybe I'll throw that in just as well. So first off, parenting all this stuff back in. Quick, easy way is just really actually to select all the pieces you want to parent. So just the thumb, the pointer finger, the middle, the ring, and the pinky joint. And so I'm getting all of those hierarchies, all of the hierarchies. So I'm picking the top node of all those hierarchies, and then I'm going to shift select the wrist joint and say P for parent. And so now those are all within the hierarchy of the arm here, so it's all within the hierarchy. So that's all set up. we do want to set up an expression, so we want the wrists rotate X to tell the lower arm how far to rotate and what to rotate. So I'm going to take the rotate X, just copy it, of the wrist, and then I'm going to select the lower arm control. You can see it's the rotate X. I'm going to say the lower arm joints rotate X is going to equal the wrist joints rotate X. But we don't want it to rotate as much. We want it to rotate as half as much. So I'm going to divide this one by 2, semicolon. So now when the wrist joint rotates on the X, the lower arm joint will rotate, but only by half. So let's take a look at that. So if I select my hand control and I rotate now on the X, you can see that up here that the arm is rotating too, but not quite as much, only half as much, and that makes it look pretty cool. Okay, that was, I've gotten so far without doing any saving at all. So probably should have said so, but I'm going to do save scene as. Up to 5 here, so let's put a 5 in there. Do you want to just throw in the pull vector for the elbow and the clavicle? So the clavicle joint is actually going to be put in on the front view. And I think that in some instances that we may have made the clavicle first. I can't recall, but essentially clavicle joint is really, I'd say this shoulder could have maybe been a little bit in, a little bit, but clavicle joint is really going to let you control the shrugging of the shoulders and that sort of thing. So I'm just kind of put it roughly, it's really close to the shoulder actually. The shoulder's really going to let the arm bend, but this is actually going to let the shoulder move up and down. So you get shrugs and kind of the upper body controls. It adds a little bit in there. So this is going to become the clavicle joint. It's just only one. So put it right about here and then hit return. Let's put this back into perspective, this view. So sometimes this joint might actually be a little better served slightly forward. I'm not going to get too into the placement of it. It's just kind of nice to have it hold out a little bit of the chest as well, I think. But so positioned out here. Looks good. We're going to name it clavicle. And the way we control that, there's actually, you can do 2 types of constraints here. You can do an aim constraint, or you can do an orient and point constraint like we do on the neck and the head. I'm actually a little bit more fond of the orient and point constraint than the aim constraint, but I haven't worked that much with it, so what can I say? So let's just make up a quick control curve. I'm going to close up the shoulder for the moment and just kind of work real quick over here. Let's select my copy curve. I'm going to duplicate that curve. I'm going to call this clavicle. CNTL. And we'll just snap it over to the clavicle joint there. Just going to pull this thing out a little bit and get it positioned nicely. It's pretty good. Just going to freeze transformations on the object. Pressing home and V middle mousing on the clavicle just to put the pivot point in that position. I'm just gonna, while I have it here, just duplicate it and move it over to the side, just so I have one of them sitting for the other side there. So it's really important where it's positioned at the moment. Just snap it to the other clavicle when I have it in there. That looks good. So basically all I'm going to do is just select the curve, shift select the joint, constrain, orient, go to the options just to make sure the offset's on, say add. Then we're going to do joint, and then we're going to do the curve, constrain point. And it's a little annoying because you get the translates lock like that, and it's sort of annoying. But we can lock those out and take care of it that way. Takes care of the clavicle. Next would be the elbow joint. So just I haven't actually done that on the knee, so we'll need to do it on the knee. And I was thinking of doing that in a separate video, but just I'm going to do it here one more time just to finish it out because we're so close. You can duplicate the copy curve. Call this elbow CNTL. Get my move control. Step this thing over to the elbow. And I kind of like to do this last because I want it to be matching with the other object. So I might end up redoing this on the other one, but just so you can see the elbow control sort of set up here. You know, I usually line it up with the elbow, push it in the back. It's going to move around a lot, so its position here isn't so much an issue. I'm going to freeze those transformations. And with the elbow control selected, I'm just going to shift select the IK handle. I'm going to go constrain, pull vector. And the pull vector allows you to move this, and you'll rotate your elbow around, so you can control the position of your elbow. And that sets us up with the whole thing there. So keep hitting the command key. So now I can move my arm. Can rotate my wrist and all my fingers come along. Let's actually keep that on. I can, let me just put in some numbers here. So I've got my finger roll. I got my thumb, so let's put a little roll on that. And come down a little bit and in. And then I can move it around and put it into position. And rotate my wrist. Right, so it's super versatile and really like controllable. Everything's working the way that it should, and a really overall pretty nice little arm and hand control with all the fingers on it, ready to roll. Okay, so with that being said, the only thing you'd have to do now essentially would be, let me zero all this out, would be to do it all in the other hand. So it's going to take a little while on the other side, but remember we're going to be doing the mirror the joints. We'll duplicate the hand, and that way we'll get all these things on there already. You know, I'm going to do another video about that. It won't be nearly quite so long as this one, obviously. So I'm just going to show you how to get it over there, and then you can just maybe redo this one again or something. That's going to be a little alarming. Okay. You know, you just select that. You go to mirror joints, YZ, apply. Puts the whole thing over there. Looks like the IK handle is a little messed up. You might have to redo the IK handle. You can see it's all fixed that way, and you would completely doing the other side now, and we'd want to do the prefix hierarchy name, put an RT underscore in front of that shoulder. This is the new IK. I put an RT arm IK. Then you would want to open up everything, get that. There's a lot of stuff in here. Find that right effector. Press home. Snap that onto the wrist joint. Again, there are some reversals here, so I think we did this in the other class, and I didn't have any problems that there was some reversals here, so that's coming from the mirror joints. So unless that presents itself as a major problem, we're not going to worry about that. Just pressing home again, so I'm out of home. It's a little hard to work with such a large hierarchy there. I'm just going to click away, and again, there's the arm IK. And now if I move it, the whole thing's moving properly. That just messed up the wrist. So probably shouldn't have moved that without the arm control on there. But with the arm control, what I would do is I would just take this hand control, duplicate it, snap it back down onto the grid down here. Call this RT. Delete that. You can take that out of that hand control. So now I have a duplicate. It's going the wrong direction, so what I would do is just I would take that scale X and put a -1 there, reverse it, freeze transformations, group it, RT hand control, or this hand group. Shift select that wrist, P for parent, take out all the values. So again, I'm worried about that mirroring of the joints, but select that group, just make sure you've got that group selected and unparented. Now you got a right hand over there that's got zeros in it. It's all like ready to roll. Try that IK handle one more time here. Take that effector. So for whatever reason, last time I moved that, it just kind of broke everything. Let's try it one more time, hopefully. Sorry. I'm having a hard time seeing if I got that. Oops. the rotate handle there. This video is taking forever, man. Sorry, guys. That looks better. I'm just rotating way out of the view here. There we go. Center myself. Okay, that looks pretty good. Just let go of that tool. The IK. So I'm going to select the arm control, select the IK. This is actually a point constraint, and then the right arm control and the wrist joint, and this was actually an orient constraint. I'm not going to the box because I know they're already set. Move that around. Everything's moving properly. The rotations are moving properly. And so now you would just, what you'd have to do is go back through and set up all of the expressions one more time for the finger rolls and the multipliers and all of that. And you know, it's going to take you a little while to get it all set up, but after that's done, it'll really be nice to have it on both sides. I am seeing that I undid that prefix hierarchy for that whole shoulder joint. So just make sure that before you actually do the expressions there, that you go to the prefix hierarchy names and do put an RT. Say okay. That way your right shoulder is going to be different than your left shoulder. So your expressions won't be the same. It'll give you all kinds of errors if you don't put the rights on there. And doing that prefix hierarchy again, you see how so much of this was named just automatically. So all RT point, all of that, RT middles, all of that was basically typed in for me, which is a big time saver. So you can go backwards in the video and kind of find the expressions part there, and go back and do that one more time on this, and that would finish you out for the arms. I think I also only selected I didn't bring the clavicle over there when I did this here, so I would have to do that as well. The parenting here is really just the shoulder to the clavicle. It's the parenting scenario. And that really lets you shrug shoulders and stuff like that. And you can kind of twist the shoulder around too, which is kind of nice. Okay, I think that is everything. That was a really long video. I think that's probably the longest one. So I'm going to stop there, and hopefully it makes sense. All right.